Stress plays a major factor in our lives today, for sure. I mean, I'm sure that it always has, but I just feel like today, uh, we're faced with things that no other generation before us, I feel like, was. And that is, this technological boom that we are a part of. And so the fact that, we are experiencing things that are happening all over the world, through our devices, that adds a level of stress, I feel like, to us that just has never been there in the past. Because, with this technology, you are visualizing and hearing things that are happening all over the place, and ultimately internalizing a lot of those things. And in large part, these things are very negative. I mean, it's just the way it is today. I mean, can you deny that we are just bombarded with negativity constantly, on a daily basis? And so that alone just encompasses life with stress, and the fact that, many people today are experiencing chronic illnesses, and regardless of that, like even the death rates due to heart attacks and strokes and things like this that are absolutely driven by stress. This is a topic that we really need to talk about, and to try and understand better, and to try and come up with ways to help to deal with these stresses that are such a big part of our life. And so, I got to thinking, life throws at us all kinds of different obstacles, and many of which are stressful in nature. But oftentimes, we put ourselves in stressful situations, unknowingly and knowingly. I mean, you have people, for sure, there are many people that just love drama. I'm not sure why, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of people, I've experienced it many times in my life, where, there are people that just thrive in drama. And if there isn't drama there, they will create it, because it's like they thrive on it. They need it. And I don't understand it. I will never understand individuals like that. But, the fact of the matter is, many of the situations that we put ourselves in are stressful, and we could do without. We could definitely do without that. And so I think the first thing is understanding that those things that are within our control, those situations that are within our control that are stressful, we need to try and reduce or eliminate those completely. Because the fact of the matter is, stress is the underlying thing that's a part of all of these health conditions. And, if you are someone who is trying to focus on your health and wellness and longevity, well, then stress is definitely a topic that needs to be attacked, in your life. Because it takes away from those things, most certainly. And so I think the first thing is understanding that there are things within our control that we can not allow ourselves to be a part of, that's going to reduce stress in our lives. And then, likewise, there are things in life that happen that are just completely out of our control. And those things we have no say in, as far as those events or those circumstances happening to us. But what we do have a say in is our response to it. And honestly, the situations or those circumstances in themselves is not the stress. The stress, The stress is our response to those situations. And so we need to first understand that stress, I think we think of stress as just a byproduct of life. But that is not necessarily true, because I think that we do have some control over it. And the key here is understanding that so that we can try and manage it. First, you need to understand that you do have control over the situation. Not all the time, but in the times that we do. That's what I'm talking about here. The times where we do have control. There are things that we can do to help reduce the levels of stress that we allow ourselves to be a part of. And so, when these situations happen and they arise in life, we need to understand that that's a trigger for a response. And that response, when we are in autopilot, is by default stress. It's a stress response. That's where we need to take systems out of autopilot and grab manual control, okay? We need to understand the trigger first. Then we need to take manual control. And one of the very first things that we need to do is focus on the physical aspects of what are happening, which is typically an increase in heart rate, an increase in breathing, just where you're feeling like your systems are being overloaded, you know? We need to dial in on the breathing aspect of this, because if we can get the breathing under control, well, then it will then affect and bring back down to a balanced state our heart rate and just, you know, our overall cardiac response to these situations. And so, you know, breathing is so crucial in this, because what we need to do is just allow ourselves in that moment when that trigger hits to disconnect from the situation, focus on our breathing, and to like actually visualize our lungs as we do deep, smooth inhales through the nose and then deep, smooth exhales through the mouth. And we do this in a deep, slow, controlled manner. And by doing this, we then take control over the physical part of the situation that's typically happening, and we're bringing it back to a balanced state, which is what needs to happen first. So as we do that, the next thing would be to have one thing that is your absolute happy place. The one thing that you can think of, the one thing that comes to mind, where when you think of it, it brings you joy, it brings you peace, it brings you happiness. You need to go there. You need to go there in that moment, and you need to focus in on that happy place as you do this very slow and controlled breath work. And as we bring everything back down to a calm, balanced state, the next thing, because unfortunately we cannot stay in this disconnected state, you know, as much as we may like to, we do have to re-immerse ourselves back into the situation. And so, you know, what does that look like? Because we certainly can't just go back into it if our mindset is still the same, because all that's going to happen is those things are going to basically backfire, and it's all going to come back again, you know, the stress response. So we have to understand that our mindset plays a pivotal role in this, because the approach we take as we re-enter whatever situation that is stressful, as we re-enter that, we have to do it with a positive, optimistic mindset. And even though the situation is obviously negative in nature, okay? If it's causing stress, it's negative. It's as simple as that. But even though that's the situation at hand, if we come at it with a positive response, a positive, optimistic response, we will see that even in the midst of that negativity, there are always, and I mean always, going to be things that are positive in the midst that we can grab a hold of and use to get through that situation. And, just an example is, in every situation, there is an opportunity to learn a lesson. And so the one thing that we need to change here, folks, is our perspective. Perspective is an amazing, amazing word, because in my opinion, it is quite literally the quickest way to change your life, is to change your perspective. Because you can go from poor to rich instantly. You can go from having nothing to being wealthy instantly. You can go from sad to happy instantly with just a change in your perspective. And so even that, where we come into the situation that's negative and we're trying to find the positive things in it that we can latch on to and use to see that even in these negative situations, there is always positivity lingering somewhere for us to latch on to and to focus in on and to grab a hold of. And that's the key, and as we do that, we need to try and bring the situation in for a landing, and a smooth landing. Because when we take the system out of autopilot and we grab a hold of the manual control, we are now the ones that dictate how the outcome of that situation ends up. And so as we re-immerse ourselves into the situation and we calm things back down and we understand that even though it's a negative situation, there are positive things in it that we can grab a hold of and utilize to help us grow stronger and more capable of dealing with these stressful situations in life. And so, as things calm back down, we need to take that negative situation that's looming and we need to package it all up in a nice positive framework. And then we need to file that in the back of our mind, because we can then reference that for our own self-discipline and growth in this area, because it'll be filed away in the back of our mind as a win. And as we stack these wins up over these type of things in our life, we are absolutely going to grow stronger and more capable of dealing with them as they arise in the future. And so I understand that this isn't going to work in every situation, but what this is about is understanding the ones that we do have control over and doing better in those situations. Because even to reduce stress down from 100% of your stress level, wherever you're at now, down to 50 would be a remarkable feat, and a remarkable win for your own personal growth and your overall wellness, health, and longevity, which should really be a focus of all of ours, and so, it's just something that was on my mind here. Stress is a big player when we're talking about disease and a lot of these chronic illnesses that people face today. And if we can reduce the amount of stress in our lives, we can then impact those things as well. And so I just feel like it's something that we should make a goal to do, in our lives. And I really think that if we try to put these things into practice, it can really help us overall. And that's ultimately what this is all about. So, If you are with me on perspective, I created another video about just that topic, because if we can understand the role of perspective in life and understand how big of a deal it is, then we can begin to understand what the keys are to changing our life. And so if you are interested in that topic of changing perspective, check it out. It'll be somewhere linked in around this video, and hopefully this has helped you in some way, because as I work through these situations in my own life, I'm putting it out there, because surely in a world of 8 billion plus people, there are other people going through similar, if not the same, issues. And so I think that there is a great possibility that someone out there will find some benefit in this content, you know. And as I work through these situations in my own life, the name of the game here is putting that information out to try and help other people to do the same. And so that's what we're all about here, and I hope that you will join us on this journey. So until next time, I'm Brad Casper. This is Casper's Corner, and we are out.